Hello and welcome to another episode of the Preview Show brought to you by the Known and Ever podcast. As ever, I'm your host, Natalie Bromley, and this week we are looking forward to the penultimate game of this Premier League campaign. I am joined by the hero of the Preview Show, the man himself, the headliner, Dave Statman Roberts. We're also joined later on in the show from various members of our panel who give us their thoughts ahead of the game, and we discuss the implications of Forest's appeal loss this week. So, get prepared, listeners. We are ready to do a preview show. Let's go. David, different background. What is going on?
Well, I've got the sun setting on Burnley season. I've got the James Hargreaves stand in the background, and I've got we can't actually tell.
No. Oh my goodness. This is very sad. This is all very... Sorry, I was just adjusting my mic then, which is why the changing volume level's just gone crazy. Dave, that's a really sad start to the Premier League. Are you not buoyed by the appeal loss from Forest this week? Is it still doable? We beat Spurs this weekend and Forest lose against Chelsea. It's in our hands. We beat them on the last game of the season and we survive. Are you not... Is there any of this that will just turn that sun and turn it back up in the air rather than setting?
Well, there is Luton to think about as well. Remember?
Oh God, I keep forgetting about Luton. Genuinely, how many preview shows have we now talked about this where we're talking about the survival? And I genuinely keep thinking it's a two-horse race. I genuinely keep forgetting about Luton.
But you're right. You're right to some extent that if we beat Spurs and if Forest lose and Luton draw, let's say, then theoretically it could be in our hands. But I think we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. We'll see.
Well, it won't be theoretically in our hands. It will be in our hands, won't it? There's no theory about it. It's definitely in our hands.
Theoretically, those results happen, which is...
Yes, those results are theoretical. But if it happens, we're on, Dave. Is there any part of you that's optimistic about this?
Not really.
Oh dear. I was hoping that you were going to be upbeat this episode. Well, we'll hear from the rest of our panel later on in the show and find out what their thoughts are and whether or not they've taken any enthusiasm from this news this week. Of course, Forest losing that appeal. I think most people are now saying that they expected that they would lose that appeal. And I think I certainly wasn't seeing that while we were waiting for the decision. I think there was a lot of clickbait out there about they were probably going to get a point back or have them given back altogether, which was a horrifying prospect. It was quite nice that we weren't relegated, Dave, without even kicking a ball. That would have been that would have been that would probably been a very fitting end to this season, actually. But as it stands, their 4-point deduction still stands, and I think it does feel a little bit strange because as we've now had confirmed that it should have been a 6-point deduction, and it was a 6-point deduction, the same as Everton, but they had 2 points taken off because of their commitment to assisting the inquiry and their disclosure of documents and dealing with things in a timely manner. But that to me shouldn't have been a thing, Dave. And I will talk at length in the summer, I think, about these things this summer because it's just been, this season, because it's just been a bit of a farce. But if Forest do stay up this season and we go down, it feels like we've been punished twice, right? So we lost our league status because we consistently stayed within the rules and didn't overspend. Forest didn't and didn't get relegated. They stayed in the league. And then this year they've broken the rules, but they've cooperated. So they've got 2 points back, which were ultimately going to relegate us again. It's a nonsense, right?
Yeah, and I think at the end of the season, if it comes down to it, and we are a little bit off that yet, but if it comes down to it and it comes down to a point, then that will be always sort of nagging at the back of the mind in terms of what's happened. But so you kind of got a point in what you said that 2 point was a 2 points back they got for good behaviour, cooperation, whatever it was an odd one really. They have broken the rule. They knew they were breaking the rules because they had a player that they could have sold within the time and didn't do, and then they sold him later. That was with Brennan Johnson to Spurs, coincidentally. And it was the case that they've got that money, haven't they? They've got that money, the extra money 12 million, whatever it was, that they got extra by selling him in August, start of September, instead of doing it at the start, well, towards the start of the summer, which would have been in the accounting period. But the argument's an odd one because it's judged across a 3-season period. And 2 of those seasons, they were in the Championship. So they've really, really, really overspent in the 3rd season to take them over when you're averaging across the 3. So it's not like it's been a minor thing. It's been a fairly flagrant thing from their point of view to do that and incur the losses across 3 seasons, averaged across the 3 seasons, if you will.
Yeah, that's a really good point, is that, Dave? I think the biggest thing for me, and I put Everton in the same category again. Now, Everton fans have got bigger things to worry about at the moment. There are administration specialists being called into the club to look at a potential restructure or administration of that club. Their owners are in a right mess, and that's just a really badly managed club at the moment. So I think Everton fans are going to be much more concerned with the longevity of their club and their survival than whether they had to go down to the Championship this season. But if we look at these 2 biggest breaches this season of Everton and Forest, both of them, if Forest stay up, Everton and Forest have just got away with it. Like, this is the end of it now. They won't get punished again. They've had their punishment, and both of them have been hit in a season where there were 3 really poor sides that were going to get relegated, and they've retained their league status. And like, what's the punishment? There isn't anything really. I guess Everton fans might, or Everton as a club might think, well, maybe this season they were playing that well that they could have pushed for Europe, but they were never in a European fight this season. There were better sides above them that would have beat them even without the points deduction. And to be honest, a lot of their performances towards the second half of the season have been really poor anyway. But yeah, it's not left a particularly pleasant taste in my mouth, hasn't this, Dave?
No, and it's not ideal all round. You don't want to be, well, ideally you don't want to be staying up based on points deductions, but we are where we are with it. And it's a little bit of a mess, really. And in the background as well, there's certainly a case to answer for Manchester City. There's 115 charges, which, because of the complications involved with that, that's going to take a lot longer to come around, and potentially with Chelsea as well. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with those further down the line.
Yeah, there's absolutely no way that Manchester City are going to get punished to the point, or they'll get punished in a way that Everton and Forest did this season, where there's been 0 implications. Anyway, let's move on, Dave, because we have a match of our own to preview. Never mind this points deduction nonsense. It is the final away game of the season, the penultimate game of this season. It is Tottenham Hotspur away, Saturday the 11th of May, 3 p.m. kickoff, not being televised anywhere in the UK. Kick us off, please, David, with our match results summary.
Yeah, certainly. Despite facing Spurs at 3 different grounds on our Premier League visits, we've yet to come away with a victory in 8 previous attempts. As well as 7 defeats, our best result to date was a 1-1 draw. That was at Wembley in August 2017, when a late equaliser from relatively new signing, it wasn't his debut, he'd played in a cup match the previous midweek, but substitute Chris Wood was the goal scorer, and he earned us a point. However, football existed before 1992, and Burnley's overall record for 52 previous away league matches against Spurs is won 10, drawn 10, plus 32 defeats. We've managed to score 54 goals, but have conceded a whopping 130 times over the years, not helped by some heavy defeats in recent seasons. 4 of our away wins were prior to the Second World War, and 3 were during the early part of the 1950s, which means that in the last 68 years, there have been just 3 Burnley wins in the last 27 attempts in the league, although we have had some success in cup competitions, most notably a memorable 4-1 win. That was in the League Cup, or the Milk Cup as it was that season. That was the quarter-final at White Hart Lane in 1983. We may need to summon up some of the spirit of 83 if we're going to overcome Spurs and finally get our first Premier League away win against them.
I think it's going to take a lot more than that, Dave, but, we live in hope. Anyway, moving on, it's time for our match retrospective. Match retrospective. I always struggle to say that, Dave. Can we have a different description for that next season? I don't trip over my words. That's what we should do in the summer prep. We should find all the words I struggle with and change them. Sorry, this is right. What is this? What is this section? Of course, we demonstrating the ups and downs of being a Burnley fan with a feature we call our one to remember and one to forget. Starting as usual, please, with the one to forget, Dave.
Okay, although we suffered 2 defeats by 7 goals in the past, they were in September 1930 when we went down to an 8-1 defeat, and then in September 1968 it was 7-0. But we're going to focus on a match from December 2019 when Sean Dyche's Burnley side faced a Spurs team with Jose Mourinho in charge. This was also Burnley's first visit to play at the new Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and what a baptism of fire it proved to be. 2 goals, firstly from Harry Kane and then Lucas Moura, put the home side into a 2-0 lead inside the first 10 minutes. And they made it 3 just after the half hour, as the entire Burnley midfield and defence gave Heung-min Son the freedom of North London to weave his way up the pitch and finish for what would later become the FIFA Puskas goal of the season. But I reckon the Burnley team could probably have claimed the assist. There were no further goals before half-time, but during the second period, further goals from Harry Kane and Moussa Sissoko made it 5 for the home side, and a rather depressing day for the Clarets fans who travelled down for their first experience of the new ground. Other than our trips to play Manchester City, we didn't tend to concede as frequently as this during Sean Dyche's time in charge. And after the match, the Burnley boss said, "It's so unlike us to be so open and give the ball away in so many bad areas. It was a tough day. We had lots of the ball, but couldn't open them up."
Yeah, I was at that game. It was indeed our first game at that stadium. Absolutely phenomenal stadium. Absolutely loved it. Awful day at the office. It was a miserable game all round. And I would very much disagree with Sean Dyche's analysis of that, because I definitely don't remember us having much of the ball. But there you go. You know, we see what we want to see. Match 2, please, Dave. Let's positive on a high. One to remember.
Yes, I want to remember. With no Premier League wins to revisit, we're instead going to take a look back at our last away league win against Spurs. That was almost 50 years ago in the mid-1970s. We'd actually won 3-2 at White Hart Lane in September 1973. We managed to repeat that scoreline again the following season in October 1974. Burnley were gifted a 2-goal lead inside the first 17 minutes. A Spurs captain for the day, Mike England, who had also played for the team just down the road at Ewood Park for 7 seasons during the 1960s, managed a special double. That's 2 own goals. The first was when he deflected in Ian Brennan's cross after 7 minutes, followed by a deflection from Paul Fletcher's shot 10 minutes later. Curiously, this feat was matched in the League Cup game in 1983, when Graham Roberts also scored 2 own goals in the quarter-final tie, also at White Hart Lane. Back to 1974, though, and there were no further goals until 12 minutes before the end, when John Pratt pulled one back for the home side to make it 2-1. But then, 2 minutes later, Mike England partially atoned for his earlier goals in his own net, scoring what you might call an odd hat-trick. He got the goal at the right end, so 2 own goals and a goal, 2 own goals and a goal for his own side. That made it 2-2 after 80 minutes. Spurs were then reduced to 10 men when Phil Beale took exception to being booked for a foul in the 87th minute. And his arguing and then an apparent push on referee Roger Kirkpatrick meant that he had to take an early bath. Burnley still had time to find another goal, and it was 2 legendary Clarets who were no longer with us who combined for the winner. Peter Noble set up Leighton James, whose shot beat Pat Jennings with the help of a slight deflection off John Pratt to win it just before the end. Spurs manager Terry Neal said after the game, "There's too much fear about the side. Some of them are scared of their own shadows." Frankly, we'd take any sort of victory this weekend. Surely we have to get a Premier League at Spurs sometime.
You would think so, Dave, but I would say surely probably not. Well, let's see what our opposition think about this game. As you know, we like to bring you the views of our opposing fans and to get their take ahead of the game. And this week we talked to our friends at The Last Word on Spurs.
This is Ricky Sachs here from The Last Word on Spurs. Hope you're keeping very, very well. This is a preview ahead of Tottenham Hotspur's game against Burnley in the Premier League. Huge, huge game for Tottenham, of course, their penultimate home game of the season, where a win for Spurs will almost guarantee fifth spot in the Premier League. In what's been a really up and down season under Ange Postecoglou, of course, Spurs started with 8 wins, 2 draws, and then quite honestly, from that Chelsea home game, where Spurs received a number of injuries and a couple of suspensions, they've never ever really recovered. And that's really been the story of Tottenham's season. A lot of inconsistencies, a lot of up and downs. But there's an opportunity here to ensure that Tottenham do finish in the top 5 and secure Europa League football, which I'm sure, had everybody said that to Tottenham on the eve of losing Harry Kane, of course, to Bayern Munich, many Spurs fans would have taken it. So I think on that perspective for Tottenham, it would work out to be a satisfactory season. But with Ange Postecoglou, there will be a pressure, I believe, from next season onwards to really see a much more consistent Spurs side, one that can hopefully get rid of the multiple errors that we're seeing in terms of conceding from set pieces and ultimately their defending overall, where they've conceded 54 goals in the Premier League to date and are averaging conceding 1.9 goals per game. So this weekend's game against Burnley will definitely have a lot of goals in it, that's for sure. I think for Burnley, there's a really good opportunity where if I was saying who do you want to be playing right now, I wasn't a Spurs fan, I probably would be saying Spurs, given the nature that we've lost 4 games in a row for the first time in nearly over 20 years. So look, I think respect to Burnley, they've always tried to continue playing their way under Vincent Kompany. And I think this weekend's game will be really intriguing to see how he goes about it. Of course, for Burnley, nothing but a win will probably do for their Premier League status. So in terms of a result and prediction for this one, I'm going to go for a 3-1 Spurs win, but I don't think it'll be easy. I think Burnley will make it tough, and I think Burnley will come to play. But look, I want to wish you guys the very best for the rest of the season and next, and hopefully you survive the drop. But I've been Ricky Sachs on The Last Word on Spurs. Thank you for your time. Take care, and we'll hopefully catch up very, very soon.
Okay, Dave, can I have some referee details, please?
Yeah, we've got Liverpool-based Aussie, Jared Gillett. He'll be the referee in North London on Saturday afternoon. You may recall that he was hooked up with a body camera. That was for the match just last week between Crystal Palace and Manchester United. That's apparently for a one-off programme that's going to be broadcast later in the year. Burnley have 1 win, 1 draw and 2 defeats from his previous 4 matches in charge. And this will be the 3rd time he's been in the middle for one of our matches so far this season. The previous 2 were a narrow 1-0 away defeat at Wolves back in December, and also the 5-0 home defeat to Arsenal in February. He's yet to produce a red card in any of his 4 previous Burnley matches, but the yellow card count stands at 9 to Burnley players and just 4 to our opponents. This time, it'll be the turn of Peter Banks to watch the replays of a blatant shirt pull, followed by a 2-handy push in the back, and then totally ignore it because it was a Burnley player. Yes, he's the video assistant referee this weekend. And coincidentally, he was also the referee who had to postpone the match at Turf Moor between the same 2 teams in November 2021. You may recall that was after a heavy snowstorm a couple of hours before kickoff.
I do remember that. Those memes of Sean Dyche looking with the snow falling on him and just looking with it, not even a coat on, just his shirt, is still legendary among football fans. Where was I going to go with that? Yes, I sent some bitterness with the VAR officials, Dave. It's creeping into your script. I don't know if you're aware of this.
Well, yeah, deliberately so.
Well, let's pause there, listeners, and let's hand over to our panellists because we want to get their thoughts ahead of this game. What did they think of that Newcastle collapse? What do they think of Forest's loss this weekend? Does this mean that we can have a chance of surviving? And how do they rate our chances of getting that first win ahead at Spurs? Let's ask them. Hand over.
Hello, NNN FPL listeners. Tom here. Just a bit of a look back at the last week, how it's gone. So we had the pretty devastating result and performance on Saturday. I don't think anyone really saw that coming. I think we really felt like those kind of performances were a thing of the past. How many times have we seen that game now at home this season? Play well for 15, 20 minutes, concede a goal and then just immediately collapse. Just don't offer any resistance. You could see the belief just drain out the team after that first goal went in. tactically we were naive. It was similar to the start of the season where we were just letting teams who have much better players than us have all the room they wanted in behind. And yeah, it was a bit of a disaster. And it leaves us in a pretty much impossible position now, I would say. Especially with Luton getting a point and obviously Forest getting all 3 as we expected them to. Luton's point, I think people have maybe overlooked that bit. They're now 3 points above us with a goal difference, which is 6 better. So even if by some miracle we get a win at Tottenham and Forest lose to Chelsea, we're still relying on Luton losing. Because if Luton get anything, then they're still above us going into the last game. And I think their fixtures are pretty favourable, playing West Ham and Fulham. So it looks like the end of the road for us now. Hopefully all we get from the last 2 games is better performances, a bit of commitment, a bit more fighting spirit, let's say. We've had that in the 8 games prior, and I don't really understand why it disappeared so quickly after that first goal for Newcastle. But there we are. I think we've all been expecting this outcome for a long time now, so I don't think we can be too downhearted, if that makes sense, even though obviously it's a disappointing season. I think it's a brilliant opportunity this season to stay up with the points deductions, and it's probably going to be the lowest points total ever needed to stay in the league, and we've not managed to get even there. Probably any points total we've got in any other of our Premier League seasons have kept us up, so that is frustrating. But there's some plus sides to going down as well. We'll win a few more games next season for sure. We'll have some better fixtures. If Bolton come up, that'll be a big game, I'm sure, at the Turf. We've got obviously Preston and Blackburn renewing rivalries with them. Derby coming back up will be a good trip, especially for me. He lives in Derby City Centre, so I'm happy with that one. And Portsmouth as well is a ground I've not been to. So yeah, some good trips on the horizon. No VAR next season, so I'm not feeling as gutted as I thought I would. Certainly not as gutted as I was last time we got battered at home to Newcastle in a must-win game. I'm going down to Tottenham. They're obviously in really terrible form themselves. So in some ways it almost feels like a winnable game. They haven't really got fourth place to play for anymore. I think they'd need to win all 3 games and hope Villa lose both of theirs, so it's pretty unlikely. But then now we've let Newcastle onto their coattails. Now I suppose they're thinking about making sure they finish 5th, so maybe that will make a difference. I'm not sure. They're similar to us, isn't it? They're quite naive how they set up. It's all out attack no matter what. And obviously, as we've seen in the last few weeks, good teams take advantage of that. Whether we'll have enough to do that, I'm not 100% sure. The company's still talking about we're still alive and there's still belief, but there really didn't look to be any belief in, on that pitch at half-time on Saturday. There didn't really look to be any belief in the dugout. There wasn't any changes made at half-time or anything like that. We just let it carry on, and I don't really understand why, but there's quite a lot about this season I don't understand. There's quite a lot about what the manager does that I don't understand, so perhaps leave that to one side. But yeah, as I say, I'm not feeling as downcast as I thought I would be. I'm quite looking forward to next season, and that I hope next season is going to go a bit of a way to repairing the relationship between the club and the fans. It has felt off at times this season, and the manager as well with quite a lot of people that I know perhaps don't see him in the same light as we did last season. Let's put it that way. So. As bad as it'll be, it's an opportunity. I think we all know with the financial situation, we need to make sure we're coming back up in the next year or 2. So there's a bit more pressure, I think, on Kompany than there was in his first season, especially with having a bit of a shocker this time as opposed to a really good season in his first season. So we have to bear that in mind as well. We have to bear in mind the extra pressure, but I am optimistic. I'm looking forward to a nice day out in London tomorrow in the sun. Not too much pressure, and if our relegation, as I expect it to be, is mathematically confirmed, then I won't be too downhearted. But hopefully a good day out, hopefully 3 points, and we can keep it alive to the last day. Up the Clarets.
Okay, Dave. Last chance Saloon, you've put in my script. Is that what you feel?
Well, it is,
Are
isn't
you
it?
finally admitting that this is a must-win game?
Well, it is, isn't it? It's a must-win game. We have to win this game. If we'd have won maybe one of the other must-win games, it wouldn't have been a must-win. but we are where we are. I mean, and we can go back over, talking about VAR, we can go back over one or two VAR decisions. That might be something that we can maybe dwell on a little bit at the end of the season, if depending on the points totals of the teams around us, Luton and Forest, both of whom benefited by a couple of points, or certainly a Luton gaining a point against and us losing 2, and I guess the same at Forest as well. We should have won that game and didn't do so. That will always be at the back of our minds, I think, at the end of the season. But yes, it is a last chance, Saloon. We've got to go into the game. And we've got to win it. We've got to go in with that mindset, and we've got to try and conjure up a win somehow on Saturday afternoon.
What do you think they'll do team-wise? He's had quite a settled side recently. Do you think he'll stay the same?
Yeah, he made a change, didn't he, on Saturday? But Brownhill into the starting 11, and then he kind of played. It was a slightly different formation, wasn't it? It's sort of playing
it was like a diamond in the middle, wasn't it? Yeah. Did not work, I would suggest.
Well, it worked for about 10 minutes, didn't it? In that we had a reasonable start to the game. We could have had that penalty, and then we might have been a little bit different. But certainly after that, Newcastle were the dominant side from then until maybe 10 minutes before the end. I mean, by then they were too far ahead, and it wasn't really going to change anything. But the plan over the course of the game didn't work out for us. It perhaps wouldn't be a surprise to see maybe a reversion back to a 4-4-2, maybe having David Fofana coming back into the starting 11 as well. That might be the possible change.
Yeah, I don't like to single out players, but I'm not sure I'm in much of a rush to sign Fofana, to be honest.
Well, I'm not in terms of signing permanently at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the player, doesn't it? Well, it obviously depends on the player. You look at the team as it stands at the moment, and do we have a player who's going to score 20, 25 goals in a championship season? I'm not sure we do, really.
But we didn't last time. But that's the thing, though. That's what company said, didn't it? Because that was our criticism at the beginning of the championship season, if you remember, that we were saying we didn't have a couple of 20-goal a season strikers. As it turned out, the goals were shared. Yeah. Did he hit 20 by the end? It was only just 20, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the point was the vast majority of our goals were spread across. He didn't rely on a striker, did he? They spread very much across the team, and I suspect that company will do the same thing again. But yeah, I'm not. I think we need, if Foster goes, we need, I think, 3 centre forwards. If Foster stays, maybe we'll be all right with a couple. But yeah, it's an odd one. Okay, give me a score prediction then, please, Dave.
I'd like to say we're going to win, but I don't think we will.
This is your last chance this season to predict an away win, and you're going to pass it up.
Well, yeah, but I keep predicting us to do an away win, and we don't. So maybe if I don't, then we will. It's be one of those things. But I think that we'll go out with good intentions. But I think that Spurs, although they haven't been on a good run themselves, will probably be too strong for us, and we'll probably win 3-1.
I love it. The return of the known and ever reverse psychology. I'm going to do the same then. Let's do this. Let's see if this works. I'm also going to predict heavy defeat, 5-0 for Spurs. Let's see how this goes. And if anybody's just tuning into that and they zoned out for a minute, please remember the words reverse psychology before we start getting pelters on social media. Okay, Dave, let's move on. It is time for everybody's favourite feature. We rate Spurs celebrity fans, and you have, spoiler alert, listeners, an impressive list this week. Take it away, please, Dave. Who's made the shortlist?
I think it is quite an impressive list. Yeah, we're starting off this week's list with 2 big hitters, both of whom are Knights of the Realm. Firstly, 63-year-old actor Sir Kenneth Branagh is a star of stage and screen, but was born in Belfast and grew up in Reading. He was appointed a Knight Bachelor in the Queen's 2012 birthday honours, and it was Northern Irish footballer Danny Blanchflower who first attracted him to Spurs in the 1960s. In 2010, he spoke with the official club website saying, "Spurs have always been about commitment and style, and quite frankly, we still got it." So he said. 84-year-old retired newsreader Sir Trevor McDonald, Was knighted in 1999 for his services to journalism. He was born in Trinidad, but moved to London and started out with the BBC in the late 1960s. However, he's best known for his work as a news presenter on ITV between 1992 and 2005. Speaking to Alan Brazil on the talkSPORT breakfast show in 2020, revealed, "I've always been a Tottenham fan, ever since Spurs won the double in the 1960s. This was before he moved to England, apparently, and when English sport was popular on the radio in the West Indies." Next up, she may not be a dame yet, but 36-year-old Tottenham-born singer Adele Laurie Blue Adkins, better known as just Adele, must surely have that ahead of her. In June 2013, she was appointed an MBE in the Queen's Birthday Honours list for services to music and has gone on to become one of the world's biggest selling artists. Back in 2007, her debut single was titled Hometown Glory, but based on that title, it clearly wasn't written about her football team. Someone who hasn't been knighted yet, although there is time, is England cricket all-rounder and captain Ben Stokes. He was actually born in New Zealand before his family emigrated to England when he was 12. That might explain why he claimed that he didn't support a football team. But the gift of a personalised Spurs shirt in 2019 seemed to win him over. This followed footage of clips of Spurs fans. They were celebrating England's Ashes Test win at Headingley on the concourse, as Ben Stokes hit the winning runs after scoring a memorable century. After this, he now claims to be a Spurs fan. They do play in white, after all. That just leaves two more names on our list. The penultimate Spurs fan is 27-year-old Spider-Man actor Tom Holland.
Oh,
Natalie's celebrity, I believe.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, from a superhero perspective, clearly my interests are Marvel related.
This is despite his dad, comedian, actor and author Dominic Holland, being a Brentford fan. In a recent interview with Unilad, he said that being a Spurs fan had taught him resilience. Tottenham has never won anything and supporting them is incredibly difficult, apparently. And finally, Finally, the sixth name on our list is 48-year-old comedian and TV presenter Michael McIntyre. The London-born entertainer started out as a stand-up comedian, but as well as being a judge on ITV's Britain's Got Talent, he's gone on to host his own TV programmes for the BBC, including quiz show The Wheel and Michael McIntyre's Big Show. When his broadcasting schedule permits, he likes nothing more than following Spurs home and away. But will his presence on this list help or hinder the overall score for this week's Celebrity Fans?
That's an impressive list, Dave, isn't it? Apart from one of them, who I'm not a fan of, and I very much object to use of the word comedian when it comes to Michael McIntyre. Not a fan. But that's a strong list. Listen, with Michael McIntyre in there, I'm probably going to give it like 1. Can we not sub him out? Have we got a bench at all?
Well, there was for this one, yeah. There were various other names who came up. And you can choose perhaps one of these to replace them if you wish. There was Christmas popsters Lad Baby singing about sausage rolls and whatever they sing at their Christmas charity singles. Apparently, Spurs fans.
Is that like the Wigan Pie mascot? Is it? I don't know what that is. What is that?
Lad Baby. It's basically a
band,
husband and wife.
Lad Baby. Don't know them, but they're better than Michael McIntyre. I've never heard of them. Next.
We also had. I should have checked who we had, shouldn't I?
Well, yes, David. You should have done your job. Honestly, can't get the stuff these days, listeners.
There was definitely a few others that we could have put on there. The other one, there's one half of Chaz and Dave who's still alive. I can't remember if it's Chaz or Dave, but they are Tottenham through and through.
Did Chaz and Dave do?
So that's the other possibility. And finally,
Dave, did Chaz and Dave do Snooker Loopy? I like that song.
Yeah.
Okay, carry on.
And then the other one was other possibility was actor Jude Law.
Oh, now you're talking. Why didn't he make the cut? Dream boy. Dave.
51-year-old actor Jude Law, who's born in London. And apparently he's a big Spurs fan as well. So he could have been on our list if you
Well,
wanted.
if we put Jude Law on the list with Tom Holland, I'm going to make that a 10. What do the rest of our panel think of that list, Dave?
I think it was reasonably consistent this week. We had sort of a mix of 7s and 8s.
Okay. Are we substituting Jude Law in for Michael McIntyre, or is it staying as Michael McIntyre?
If you want, you're in charge.
Okay. I'm going to play my bench boost, which lines me up nicely to the next section. I'm going to play my bench boost, and I'm going to include Jude Law in that one, and I'm going to bin Michael McIntyre. He's been traded out, and I'm going to give that a 10. Woo! There you go. Anyway, excellent. Well done, Dave. Popular feature. It's going to be our last one next week, which is a bit of a shame. Right. We actually do have an FPL update this week, so I'm going to hand over to Adam Dennett in a second. Dave, I know you have prepared a few notes just in case, but we're going to give you the week off FPL update this week because Adam has recorded an update for you. There's been a few moves since the last time you spoke to him, and obviously we're going into the final 2 games of the season, which is a critical time for our FPL manager. So I'm going to hand over to resident FPL expert Adam Dennett, who's going to give you his update.
Hi Clarets, and welcome to your May FPL update. Only 2 game weeks to go. Game week 37 this weekend, and just thought I'd bring you an update on how the No Nay Never standings are looking. So just going to do a bit of an interactive session on here, get my mug off the screen. So as you can see, the top 10 currently stands James Sherborne in 10th place with 2,322 points. Cameron Wykes in 9th with 23 points. Andy Bick in 7th and 8th, bit dodgy, with 2,338 and 2,326 points. Aaron Flanagan in 6th with 2,340. James Hale, 5th, 2,345. Jake Edwards, long-time leader, down a place this week with 2,346. And then the top 3, Lewis Hillman in 3rd place, Benson and Wedges with 2,347 points. A past guest on the podcast, FPL expert and Sky Fantasy expert, Sean Retty, on 2,366 points. And leading the way is Jake Tomlinson with 2,393 points. So 27 points clear at the moment. I'm just going to show you something in here, going to Jake's team, just to check on how many chips you've got left for the last 2 game weeks, because if you've got them, you may as well use them. So if you go onto your team, you should be able to see game week history somewhere. It's either going to be on the side or underneath your team. If you click on there, and it shows you all the information from all the game weeks, scroll down the page, and at the bottom where it says chips, it tells you when you've played your chips. So as you can see, Jake's already used his bench boost, his triple captain, and his free hit. And he's used both of his wild cards. So you can only play 1 chip in a week. But if you've got any of those missing on this list, it means you've still got them available to play, and they should show on your pick team page or your transfer page, depending which one. But you may as well play them with the last couple of weeks of the season. If you've got any questions on that, then drop us an email or a tweet, and we'll get back to you. So I've got the April Manager of the Month to announce as well. So I'll just run down the top 5 there. So Jake Tomlinson, again, 432 points in 5th place. Max Robinson, 4th, 437 points. 3rd, Rob Greenwood, 440 points. 2nd is another resident expert and guest to the show, Jimmy the Claret, so FPL Claret, with 448 points. And leading the way, 2nd place on the normal table, on the overall table, but winner for April is Sean Retty, 449 points. Well done, Sean. Get in touch with us on Twitter, email, or Facebook, and we will send you your prize. Right. So just going to flip back onto there. I've still got to update you on the cup. So the No Nay Never Knockout Cup has been underway, and we're now down to the semi-final stage. If I find it on the side. So No Nay Never Podcast Cup. I got knocked out in game week 32 by Rich Hartley. Thanks for that, Rich. So I go on to all teams. And game week 36. The quarter-final results were past winner of the overall standings, Luke Lambert. It's through to the semis with a 110-61 win over Laura Dent. And then Rachel Shapland won her quarter-final 83-57 against Darren Morgan. And then the third semi-final, another regular mention on here, Tall Paul, 83-61 winners over Daryl Anon. And then Ursay, last year's league runner-up and doing well again this year, 97-87 winner over Michael Rumney. So semi-finals lining up as Tall Paul versus Luke Lambert and Ursay versus Rachel Shapland. I wonder who's going to come out on top there. So that's it for the update. Just a couple of things to say before we wrap it up. Like I said, just make sure you've used the remaining chips. There's a double game week this week. You with 6 teams doubling. So if you are going to make transfers or play any chips, your free hit or your wild card or your bench boost, then you need to be bringing players in from Spurs, Man City, Brighton, Chelsea, Man United, and Newcastle. So the best fixtures are probably Spurs, Man City, and Chelsea. If you really need to narrow that down to a few teams. The next deadline is Saturday, the 11th of May at 11 a.m. And as always, wishing you all green arrows for the penultimate game week 37. Up the Clarets.
Excellent. Actually, I can't leave it there, Dave. I know you prepared a few words, but you've got to wish our FPL managers green arrows. It just won't feel like the previous show if you don't.
Well, yeah, I was going to say good luck and green arrows to all our managers playing along in the No Nay Never League. And I was sure that Adam would be along in a week or two to give an end of season FPL special in a couple of weeks. If he hasn't got anything else to occupy his time at the moment.
Well, he kind of has. In a bizarre streak, we're on paternity leave number 2 in the No Nay Never team this year. We've obviously Rich is now back after his spell of paternity leave, and he's been replaced by Adam, who's going to be off for a couple of weeks. He's very kindly done us an update tonight. If he looks a bit tireder than usual, then you know why. And he is. Then he's going to be off for a few weeks on paternity leave. So, and then we've got Charlotte, who's on paternity leave. So yeah, everything's. There's just babies and kittens and everything going on at No Nay Never HQ right now. I'm looking for some consistency. I'm hoping we've got a settled side next season without having to draft in some substitutions. But do listen out, all joking aside, do listen out, listeners, because I think in the summer we are going to be going into the transfer market and we're going to be looking for some new contributors to the No Nay Never podcast. So if you do fancy appearing regularly on the show and being part of the team, do drop us a line. Our email is podcast@nonnanever.net and we will be in touch. That is all we have time for. My thanks as ever go to everybody who has made this previous show, but most importantly to the hero himself, Dave Statman Roberts, who puts in a phenomenal amount of effort to this previous show, and we are very lucky and grateful to have him. Godspeed to all travelling Clarets who are making their way down to Spurs this weekend. Cheer the boys on. I would dearly love for them to win and just to give you something to be rewarded for on your travels. But do enjoy the last away game of this Premier League season and have a safe journey home. We will be back. We will be back even probably Tuesday with the analysis show, which may be a relegation special. Hopefully it won't be. Hopefully we'll still have something to talk about in the last game of the season. And Dave and I will be back next Friday to preview that hopefully critical last game of the season at home to Forest. Thanks, listeners, for tuning in and downloading this episode. Your support is very much appreciated and we would not be here without you. I've been Natalie Bromley. This has been the preview show brought to you by the No Nay Never podcast. Until next time. The No Nay Never podcast is brought to you in association with the talkSPORT Fan Network. Our host and editor is Natalie Bromley and the show is produced by Matt Moss. Our resident statistician is Dave Roberts and our FPL expert is Adam Dennett. The Analysis Show team is collectively Tom Whittaker, Rich Steele, George Poole, Charlotte Rigby and Adam Dennett. Our music is provided by George Gaskell and our newsletter team is headed up by Jamie Smith. If you don't already, you can subscribe to our newsletter by visiting nonaynever.substack.com. Thanks as ever go to our partners talkSPORT. We are proud to be associated with the talkSPORT Fan Network.